Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm rejoined with Ben the Bane Davis. How are you, Ben?
I'm good, brother. It's great to be back. Seems like we just spoke yesterday. I'm glad that we get to continue the conversation today.
It's good to have you on again. Obviously, your mic sounding a lot better than last time. Coming off recently, a Flex Fight Series card. How's that? What was that like?
You know what's good? I've been with Flex since February, and every show it seems like there's an element that gets better and better. We had a couple amazing performances. Kamal Dunkley gets a 5 second knockout, and yeah, that's the type of things that you like seeing on the regional scene is people who really rise above and beyond what the expectation is, and I'm very excited to see what Kamal does next.
Wasn't that 5 second knockout the clip where you said this fight isn't going to go the distance?
Yeah, funnily enough, kind of the prophecy comes true right there. I didn't anticipate it going to the distance. I mean, Naquan's been finished in both of his losses, and Kamal Dunkley is riding high off of the first round knockout. So I was like, it seems like the formula is there for this one to be stopped. But I didn't anticipate the first punch being thrown to be the one.
Do you credit that from the research that you do before a fight?
With Flex, it's unique because they are a lot of guys who don't maybe have a lot of experience on Tapology, but they've got a lot of fights that aren't on the books. So my prep for them really comes down to my fighter meetings. So I get about 5 to 7 minutes with each guy. That's where I get to talk about their background, why they got into it, and what's been some of the biggest moments for them. And that's where I'll generate, the walkouts or stuff that I say in between fights. So um, yeah, I mean the topologies do help, but the real meat is when I get to talk with the guys, which is pretty standard. I'd say
Do you find it harder? Obviously, the regional shows, there's not as much data on these fights like maybe a UFC, a Bellator, ONE
yeah,
FC card.
it's difficult, man. It's definitely harder, especially for people that like are making an amateur debut. There's quite literally nothing on Tapology about them. I'll look at my notes and it's just completely blank until I get the chance to speak with them. And I think that's why, down the road, hopefully, if everything goes well and I do get to a major show, I'll feel a lot more confident about, the show itself because I've got so much more data and so much more information about these guys and so much more tape. I mean, when I'm watching fight tape for these guys, it looks like it's recorded on a PlayStation Portable, and the audio is not great and it's pixelated. Like I don't know, I'm very excited down the road. Hopefully, that my prep will just be further benefited by an upgrade in whatever I'm calling.
Obviously, you talk about in the future you want to be commentating on a big show. Is it still that
Yeah.
8 year journey that you said last time you were on here?
We might have adjusted it down to six. We might have moved the goalpost a little bit. No, I think it's so hard for me to and like we were talking about last time, it's very difficult for me to really forecast when that move is going to occur if it does ever. I think that the APFC opportunity is big, and if I can keep getting fight pass opportunities and keep linking up with fight pass shows, then who knows? Maybe that major promotion will start knocking on the door a little bit earlier. But yeah, I'd say 8 years. We'll move it down to six and a half, hopefully.
You talk about the APFC opportunity you got, obviously a Showtime Pettis organization. What was that like commentating on that, and how did that opportunity come about?
Oh, it was ridiculous, dude. I mean, it was definitely the biggest show that I've ever had the pleasure of being a part of. And I'm very excited for next month in Richmond and in August to call the events. And it was crazy how it came about. I knew their matchmaker and their social media manager. His name's Johnny. Phenomenal guy, very hard worker. And I'd done some stuff with him last year, just light YouTube work or different content pieces. And, when he linked up with APFC, I remember we talked about this months ago, like maybe even December. He was like, I'm gonna try and recommend you for the commentating team. And I was like, no shit. So, months went by and I hadn't heard much from him. And genuinely, I was like, it's not going to happen. I was like, there's no way this is actually going to occur and come into place. But, he reached back out and he was like, hey, can you send me an audition tape? Can you send me a sizzle reel? Can you commentate these fights that we've done on our last event? And boom, boom, boom. They liked it. Anthony signed off on it. And it was a great show. I admittedly wasn't at my best. I think that's one of the things that I said afterwards. It wasn't my best show because I had a lot of flight problems. So I prepped the most that I could, but I didn't have any fighter meetings. So like I was just telling you about, that's where the meat is. I didn't talk to a single fucking athlete on that card, which was incredibly difficult for me. I flew in, I got in, I was supposed to get there at like 4 a.m. on Saturday. And then the weigh-ins were going to happen at like noon. I was going to talk to the fighters and all would have been good. I got there at 5 p.m. on Saturday, about 12 full hours after I'd expected to. So the weigh-ins were done, the ceremonial weigh-ins were done. Everybody was back at the hotels or with their families and things like that. So I get in, all I can do is be a part of a broadcast meeting and then go to sleep and wake up and it's fight day. So I thankfully Michael Hansen, the ring announcer, who's an unbelievable professional, he had some notes. He'd gotten to talk with the fighter, so I was able to use his and subsidize what I'd been missing out on. But I did not feel good about that show at all. So Richmond, July 16th, it'll be a much better experience for APFC 6.
You talk about it being the biggest show you've ever been on, and obviously the preparation wasn't ideal, but do you feel like you showed up to that level? You performed the best you have done in the booth?
Genuinely, I'm unsure if my opinion matters a whole heck of a lot. Anthony was happy with it. Fight Pass was happy with it. And the producers that we were working with were happy with it. And as long as they're content with what I'm providing, then I feel whatever I feel is irrelevant. If the people signing the checks are happy, then that's all that matters sometimes.
As well as APFC being on Fight Pass, you're also on Fight Pass in a jiu-jitsu match. What was that experience like?
Yeah, man. So CFFC Pro, it was like Fury Pro Grappling 7, I think it was, on May 27th. It was a crazy experience. I had just gotten back from a karate combat gig, I think, and I wasn't doing anything that weekend. I had been trying, dude, this is actually so funny. I had been trying for like 2 months to fill that weekend and then like another weekend in June. I was contacting promotions. I was sending out DMs, calling people, and just nothing was coming together. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm home this week. Saw the announcement. A couple fights get announced. I was like, hey, can I grapple the CEO? Bada bing, bada boom. My foot gets torn apart by CFFC president Brad Bolton. So it was a fun one. I really enjoyed it. They're a great crew. I've loved them since like 2020, 2021, because they put on such an amazing show. John Morgan, a close friend of mine, commentates. CM Punk commentates. Like, it was a cool experience. It was good networking, good content opportunity. And yes, I'm in a boot, but that doesn't really impact me a whole heck of a lot.
Would you ever fight again, maybe not in jiu-jitsu, but maybe like celebrity boxing or something like that on a Misfits Kingpin card?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I view those as win-win, opportunities. I think that, yes, my platform and my audience maybe isn't exactly the biggest, but everybody on Twitter is very engaged and organically interested in whatever I do. And I think a boxing match does make a lot of sense, especially if it's like on a Happy Punch prelim for a Misfits card or a main card opener, who knows? Because especially with striking, I have a really good base and a really good foundation with that. And my boxing is a lot cleaner than my jiu-jitsu is. So if they give me somebody who's only been picking up the gloves for 3-4 months, I genuinely think I could kill them within like 3 rounds.
Is there anyone, do you have a name in mind? Maybe someone from like the Twitter space or anyone? Or is it just...
There's three people. There's 3 people within the Misfits boxing realm that I think would make sense for a first opponent. There's a guy named Most Wanted who has been talking a lot of shit. Him and I have been going back and forth for a while. And, I think that makes a lot of sense. He's a great grappler. I don't think his boxing is up to snuff. Then you've got 2 other guys, Dream and Unbar. Korn and Unbar. Sorry about that. Korn has 900,000 followers on Twitter. It makes a lot of sense to call him out. He's the biggest guy to want to get some rounds in with. Unbar was the guy that beat him on short notice. He came in. Seems like a really, really nice dude. I would love to fight him as well. So any of those 3, I think, makes a lot of sense for me. Obviously, would prefer Korn. If not, I'll take Unbar. And then Most Wanted is last, because I think Most Wanted is good, and I really don't want to get knocked out. But if I have to fight somebody, I'll fight anybody.
Obviously, so what ifs at the moment. But if you do get the call from Misfits and they give you one of those 3 names, would you come over to the UK and fight there, or would it be just US exclusively for you?
Dude, I'll go anywhere. I will go quite literally anywhere. Again, I think that Misfits pays for travel and hotel and all that, so I don't give a shit where it is. I mean, put me on the moon and I'll fight him.
Would you ever commentate on like a Misfits Kingpin card if they gave you the opportunity to join up with Wade?
Oh yeah, that'd be the whole angle of why I would be fighting an influencer boxing, is like because I want to do play-by-play. And Wade's a fantastic commentator and analyst, and getting the chance to potentially work with him in that capacity down the road would be, it'd be a true honor. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of value that I can bring to influencer boxing and influencer combat sports within a play-by-play capacity. I don't think that they recognize it. So if I get the opportunity to fight and then stake my claim at the commentating booth, that would be the ideal scenario.
And it helps that you've already got a following on Twitter, on Instagram, that if you do get a call up to Misfits Kingpin, wherever the promotion is, you're going to bring a set of eyes anyway to that card.
No, I think so, and it's kind of like, again, humbly, I don't think I have the biggest audience, and they have influencers that are significantly bigger. But I do bring some eyes, and I do bring a lot of interest on Twitter, especially. And I think it makes sense to slap me as like the first fight of the event or second fight of the event, because then win, lose, or draw, I get to go get completely hammered during the rest of the show. So everybody wins.
Obviously, being a commentator yourself, a play-by-play, do you learn when you go and watch UFC shows? Do you learn maybe from a John Anik, a Brendan Fitzgerald, a Mike Goldberg, how they commentate on fights and try to implement that into your own style?
Absolutely, 100%. I think it's interesting how when I started watching mixed martial arts in 2017, my focus was just on the fights and just on, knockout, submission, or really good performance. But now I've really just started to tune in and kind of focus on, what's going on between those three individuals sitting cage side. And that's not something that's dissimilar to me. When I was a drummer for about 7, 8 years. When I listen to music, I listen to the rhythm section, I listen to the drums and the bass. And so it's just kind of the same thing. It's an art form. And so now that I'm trying to really improve my ability at the art, I listen to the greatest artists that are in the space, which is Anik, Fitz, Chevello, Goldberg. Sean O'Connell, I think, is a really interesting example of a play-by-play because he's a former fighter with the PFL and then doing play-by-play, not color commentary, which I think is crazy. And I talked to him and he was like, when you want to learn how to do something, you just extrapolate how the best are doing it and you apply it to yourself. And so that's why when people try and criticize and say, oh, you're sounding too much like Anik, or you're sounding too much like this or too much like that, I go, well, they're the best at it. So why not try to emulate? And obviously there's a lot of myself and a lot of authenticity. I think if you actually listen to my commentary, you do understand that there's no imitation. There's no, fraudulent commentating going on. It's all me. But yeah, there's a little bit of extrapolation.
As well as Flex Fight Series, APFC, since last time you won, you were on an ex-MMA card in May in North Carolina. What was that like?
Yeah, ex-MMA was weird. I hadn't worked with the promotion before, but we had an event scheduled for April, but it had to be rebooked. And so there's this whole like up in the air of, oh, well, that was a bummer. We'll see how the next one goes. And thankfully, we actually did have the May card, and it was a great one. There's a lot of former UFC talent on it. You had guys like Tahuto Ishihara. You had guys like Ricky Bandejas Jr. In the main event, you also had, oh gosh, his name is escaping me. He had a great war with John Lineker way back in the day. I think his name's Sergio Rivera or Rivera something. Forgetting it right now, but it was a great event. I think that the venue itself wasn't the greatest, admittedly. We were in like a high school basketball sort of room, like a gym, and the audience, I don't know what our local marketing had been like, but I wish that we had packed it out more. I wish we were in more of a standard combat sports setting because everything else was truly fantastic. You had Juliana Miller and Ian Heinisch on commentary. You had John Ramdeen as the executive producer. And John Ramdeen he's done everything and anything in combat sports for the last several decades. So getting the chance to work with him was just really, truly an honor. And while I didn't have much to do with the event, candidly, I didn't have a whole lot going on. I was supposed to be doing some backstage reporting, but they didn't have a mic. So I just kind of sat and chatted with the judges the whole time. It was a cool event, and I'm very excited about the next one. I don't have a date for it yet, but I've been talking to their matchmaker, and, we've got some plans, and hopefully next time I'll have a little bit more to do.
As well as ex-MMA, you being on Karate Combat, obviously more of a backstage reporting role. What was that like, being in Miami and doing that?
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, I'm back here right now for KC40. Karate Combat's been interesting. I've been linked up with them since December. I've gone to, I think, 3 or 4 shows now, and every show there's just kind of like an accumulation of stuff to do, where to help out with. It's basically a startup. I think that's a great way of selling Karate Combat. Is it's on the ground floor of trying something new, being innovative. This week there is something very exciting. I'll tell it to you. I don't know when this will come out, but so I'll be doing play-by-play on the Kumite, which is the show the day after. It's like a challenger series, contender series type of show. So, we've got the next era of Karate Combat athletes coming through, and it's going to be a real fun task to play-by-play for that. And yeah, so I'm excited to actually, again, be here and do commentary. Kind of what I've been asking for a while, finally getting realized.
Doing just karate, do you find that maybe a little bit more easy than having the other things that come with an MMA fight, the grappling and the clinch work?
I think so, yeah. And like with Karate Combat, they've got that sort of modified rule set where there is a level of grappling and clinching. But no, because it's simply largely striking, that gives me more time to illustrate the story and weave the narrative of who these guys are. I don't have to be worried about an Imanari role changing the complexion of what the conversation is going to be, or a submission coming out of nowhere. I get to really sit down and work with Ross Levine, who will be my co-commentator, and we get to really dig into who these guys are and present them in the best way we can for the audience. And while there could be a massive knockout that happens while that's going on, I've been deeply involved since December, and I've seen, okay, you know what, there's usually a lot of time where I can build and explain to whoever's watching who these people are. So I'm excited about that. And I agree. There's going to be a big difference commentating wise.
As well as working with these different organizations, whether it's karate and mixed martial arts, you were able to interview Marcus McGee after his UFC debut win. What was that like, interviewing in Arizona, I believe?
It was great. Yeah. So I got a chance to sit down with Marcus. And what's crazy about this, I'll give you the whole backstory here because it does extend a little bit deeper than just that interview. So I've followed Marcus since 2019 when he was fighting on the local scene in Arizona. He fought at Rough, and I was actually supposed to fight him. Now, here's how this came about. So it was October 2019. I'd been training at AZ Combat for a couple months now, and I was so hot-headed. I was very arrogant. I was like, oh, I can definitely step in and fight this dude for a 135-pound title, because that was what happened. There was a title fight. Somebody fell out. Marcus needed an opponent. I reached out to the matchmaker and I was like, yo, let me step in. Like, I'll do what needs to be done. Because the way that I'm thinking is, dude, opportunity to fight for a belt. I'm feeling good in the gym. I was terrible. But like, yeah, so I was really trying to negotiate my way into this title fight. Thankfully, it didn't happen. And I saw him fight months and months later, and he just dude, he killed somebody. It was a standing TKO. He just was winging hooks, just brutalized this guy. He was knocked out standing up against the cage. And I was watching this in the venue, and I was like, dude, that would have been me 100%. So I'm glad I didn't get to fight him. And it was really cool to sit down and interview him. I had to work with, I think his manager, his agent, or somebody to organize the time. But he's a really good dude. I mean, talking about stories and just really inspirational moments. He gets the call on 2 days notice. I can't remember exactly what it was. Goes out there, gets a finish in the UFC after years of being on, the regional circuit. I'm just happy for him and can't wait to see what's next. I think he's fighting Gaston Bolanos later in the year. So him versus Gaston, give Marcus a full camp. I think that guy's top 15 talent.
Obviously, you interviewed him at a chicken shop. Was that a planned interview to do at a chicken shop instead of being over on Zoom like this?
Of course not. So the Raising Cane's location wasn't necessarily planned, but the sit-down interview is definitely planned. I mean, I don't really enjoy, I don't want to sound too entitled, but I love interviewing guys, just sitting down with them, talking with them, having my camera set up, because with a Zoom interview, I mean, it's just, there's not as much depth. I just think that for me, it's more fun to really get there with somebody in the same physical locations, and then editing it all together feels a lot better when it's an in-person shoot versus a Zoom one. So yeah, I mean, whenever I can do in-person sit-down interviews, I plan to. But Zoom interviews, it's what we do. Zoom interviews is kind of the way that we got to do it.
And it's a lot more easier than doing it in person, traveling, cost and everything like that.
Man. Exactly. I'm like, listen, if there's AZ fighters I can sit down with, great. But if not, yeah, it's gonna be Zoom.
One of the fighters you were able to meet in person was Chris Dawkins. Obviously, you have such a great connection with him. He walked out with you for your jiu-jitsu match. What was that like, interviewing him in person?
It was great. Me and Chris's manager, Hector. So I work for Hector. I commentate Empire, which is his promotion. And over the last just year and a half, man, Chris Dawkins has been just a really pleasant guy to have a friendship with. He's an amazing dude. He's got a great story. And I think that, when people really try and separate the results versus the person, they'll love Chris a lot more. There's nothing not to like. He's a hard worker. He's one of the funniest motherfuckers. And I knew, hey, you know what? I'm going to be in Philadelphia. I think Chris is in Philadelphia. I hit him up on 3 days notice and I said, hey, what are you doing Saturday night? And he said nothing. And keep in mind, I mean, this was when he was fighting Khalil Roundtree the week after. So for him to come out and corner me, and we spent a lot of time talking just up there in the training room, getting ready, and we were drilling some positions for a good 40 minutes there. And he's just a good guy. Got me in the headspace. And yeah, it'll be something I remember for as long as I live. And I'm indebted to Chris Dawkins for that night.
Going from Chris Dawkins a bit more on social media, you put on Twitter Charles Oliveira dating, was it, who was it?
Taylor Swift, yeah.
And that going viral, being on SportsCenter, ESPN, what was that like, seeing one of your tweets go that viral?
Who gives a fuck? I don't know. I mean, it's a dumb tweet. I can't even really take too much ownership of it. I'd seen somebody do Charles Oliveira and Ice Spice earlier in the day, and I was like, oh, that's a funny template. I'll put Charles Oliveira with somebody else. And yeah, ESPN picked it up, SportsCenter picked it up. I'd seen on their Snapchat, a buddy of mine had sent me their Snapchat story, and SportsCenter had made like a little clip about it. And yeah, I mean, it was a funny tweet. I thought it was a good tweet. I'm glad that it generated the traffic that it did. I thought it was pretty. I don't know. It was like 300,000 likes on ESPN's post, and I was like, that's fucking stupid. So I don't know. It's funny whenever stuff like that happens, but life moves on.
Going from Charles Oliveira, have you been watching to 31?
I have been, yeah, no. So this is the first season of The Ultimate Fighter that I've really been tuned into. Surprisingly, I haven't really been a big fan of the format historically, and with the Contender Series. I just think the Contender Series is a better show overall, and better services what combat sports fans want. But I've tried this season. I've been working with Joey Torres over the Scrap to do some coverage and some recap shows, and it's been a lot of fun. We've talked with Aaron McKenzie the last couple of weeks. We've got El Toro that's come on. Cody Gibson is slated to come on. So it's interesting because it's a different form of content. I don't see a lot of people doing Ultimate Fighter recap shows. Sure, maybe might not be the biggest audience for it, but it's just different. And the show itself is better than I expected. It's better in some areas and then worse in other areas. I just wish, I'll tell you this, I just wish we got more in-house moments. I just wish that they edited a lot more stuff from the house into the episode, because as much as I enjoy seeing these packages of their family and friends before they got the call up to the Ultimate Fighter, and then packing and all this, it's like, we knew this, and that's stuff we get on the Contender Series as well, right? You know what I mean? Like, there's no difference there, and I feel like the Contender Series does it better. So for the Ultimate Fighter, I wish they shortened the length of all those segments and gave just a lot more of the tough house, which I think everybody would be fucking more interested in. But
What's your thoughts on Team McGregor going 0-3 so far in the series?
it's not surprising, man. It's really not surprising. I think that the prospects have been shafted monumentally by this theme of the veterans coming back. Like, think about it this way. Aaron McKenzie he's the LFA 155-pound champion. He's a really fantastic fighter. He takes on 7-time UFC veteran Austin Hubbard, who's had some absolute bangers in the UFC, is UFC level. I don't want to say it's not fair, because I think they knew what the theme was. They knew what the challenge was going to be. And, these fighters are going to accept anybody on any time and anywhere. But it's just like, fuck, dude. I don't know. I don't think McGregor's going to win anything this season. Like, if he gets completely shut out, I will not be surprised.
Do you think that hurts McGregor brand if he does go 0-8 or whatever it is in the tough house?
No, I mean, it doesn't hurt his brand at all. Like, he doesn't. It doesn't. I don't know how really it impacts him. It's kind of the equivalent of, like, I wish I could think of an equivalent. I'm usually quicker on my feet, but no, I don't think it impacts his brand. Like, it's cool to have him there. It brings more eyes to it, but no, this because, like, why would it reflect on him? He has such a limited time to train with these guys, and the majority of the weeks that they're in the house, it's just staying on weight, it's just eating, it's just getting loose rounds in. It's not like he's taking somebody from no experience and then putting them up against a UFC fighter, and it's completely on Conor with that fighter's development. These guys are already pretty developed. Like I said, Aaron's a lightweight champ, he's an LFA champ. Like, all Conor's going to be able to do with these guys is show them a couple maybe tricks here and there and mentally keep them there, and that's that. Like, I don't think it's to reflect, and same goes for Chandler, right? The success that Team Chandler is having, I don't know if you should attribute that 100% to Chandler. Like, that's not being disrespectful, but the coaches just don't have as much influence on these fighters as I think a lot of people think. Their job is to, be there, be the coaches, be that figurehead, mentally keep everybody in the right place, and train, keep them in shape. But that's, it's not like you're going to learn how to be a fucking fighter on the Ultimate Fighter. Like, you're already pretty cooked and baked out of the oven. And especially with these veterans, you're not gonna teach them a lot more than they don't already know.
How do you see that fight going if it does eventually happen between the two coaches, Mike Chandler and Conor McGregor?
The first things first, I'll tell you, it's never going to happen. It's just not going to fucking come together. But the prediction for it would be Chandler KO. I think Chandler gets it done. I don't think Conor's in a competitive space at the moment. I don't think he's been in one for the last couple of years. And that's not, again, it's not knocking the guy. He's just got a lot of better things going on. He's got a lot more, lucrative opportunities on the table that take time away from training and being a peak athlete like you need to be. And like Chandler is. Chandler fucking lives in the gym. I wouldn't be shocked if that guy's got an air mattress he carries around that he sets up in his CrossFit gym when he wants to do day sessions. Like I think that it's a bad matchup. I think if we saw Prime Connor versus Michael Chandler, I think Prime Connor all day. I think that accuracy, I think that precision would definitely impact Chandler. Chandler's had some durability issues over the years. If you can touch him, you can make him rethink why he's in that fight. And I think Connor at his best wouldn't be able to do that. Connor currently, no fucking chance, especially not coming off of that injury last year with Dustin.
I think it'll be one of the most electrifying first rounds in the UFC in recent time, with how Michael Chandler starts and Conor McGregor starts.
It'd be amazing. Like, I think it would be in terms of like the fight would probably not get past 5 minutes, right? So we're thinking about pay-per-view sales, how that would do like 2 million pay-per-view sales for 5 minutes of a fight, which is just insane. And yeah, like you said, it'd be an amazing first round.
And obviously, you talk about Prime McGregor, but we know Conor could catch anyone on his day. And if he does catch Michael Chandler the way Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier has been able to do, we could see a Conor McGregor stoppage, and as he would say, the greatest comeback in sporting history.
Oh, 100%. And you look at the Charles Oliveira sequence where it was just a picture-perfect left hook that, took Chandler off of his horse. I think that Conor could absolutely do that. He's shown that he can do that. He's shown that he has so much awareness in the ring, and he's such a killer that it wouldn't shock me. I just, I don't know. I look at where both guys are at. It's just unlikely. But again, that would only add to the flames of this being an amazing comeback for Conor. If without a shadow of a doubt, he finishes Chandler and, the world kind of against him, it'd be great. It'd be an amazing moment. But the real fight's USADA, and he hasn't really started that fight.
Is there any fights you're looking forward to? Maybe that's not made or that has been made towards the back end of this year?
Oh, man. I think the Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje fight's going to be one that is just sure to deliver. We talk about fights that are guaranteed fireworks, and then sometimes they fizzle out or don't live up to what the expectation is. But there is no way on earth that fight isn't going to deliver. It simply is going to, based on their first fight and where they're both at now. I think they're each better. I think they're more technical. And I think we could see a finish even quicker. I think the first fight, Dustin got him out of there in round 4. I don't see this one getting to the championship rounds. I think 15 minutes is all somebody's going to need to put an exclamation point on that 155-pound affair. I don't think it has much stakes for the title. I will say that. Whoever wins between that doesn't deserve a title shot, in my opinion. But it's definitely going to be a fun fight.
Well, Ben Davies, thank you so much for your time. You're in Miami. I'm sure you got better things to do than talk on Zoom to me. So thank you so much for coming on.
Nah, man, it's always a pleasure. Whenever I get a chance to chat with you, it's the top of my priority list. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you so much.